We're doing Why Did America Pick Barabbas? It's Bach, St. Matthew's Passion. We'll look at headline. We'll look at headlines here in a minute. I think one of the headlines today is the Iranians hit 4 or 5 aluminum smelters. About a third of all the aluminum in the world comes out of the Persian Gulf. So we have fertilizer, 20% of fertilizer, natural gas, oil, helium's gone, and about a third of the aluminum. So globally, we're looking at double-digit inflation. End of conversation. And it will be blamed on the United States and Israel. No question about it. It'll be blamed on what's being called the Epstein class. So, how did we get here? That's what we're going to do today. Okay. All right. So, just to remind you of the Palm Sunday Passion play. So, Christ is condemned by Pilate and scourged and whipped. If you've seen the Passion, Mel Gibson's Passion, or if you're a Catholic or scourged, it's an unbelievable thing to even think about. You'd have no skin on your back. And then he goes in front of Pilate because it was Passover. They say to the crowd of Jews gathered there, we can release one prisoner. Do you want Christ? And then they say, no, crucify him. And they release Barabbas. And Barabbas is basically like a terrorist. Barabbas is sort of like a proto-Israeli. Yeah, I said that. I meant it. Like a Ben Gurion. If you remember, I know this is going to be heavy-handed, but we have to be tonight. I mean, you have to ask the question, how did this happen? How did this happen to America? Where did America go wrong? Was there something that happened, JFK assassination, 9/11, something? Or is there something just inherent in the whole system? So that's what we're going to do today. But America has chosen Barabbas. And the rest of the world sees that in America. It's no longer the land of Muhammad Ali and Marvin Gaye and Elvis and Coca-Cola. No, it's the world of Epstein and sex trafficking and bills that can't be paid, debt that can't be paid, technology that threatens people. This is the moment when I reach for the Palantir hat. Tech bros who just openly say, we're just going to use technology to kill people. Let's start there just to remind you of how this all works. So, the whole Iran war is being run by Palantir. All the targeting is being run by Palantir. All the bombing. And the way they've done it, and Mizrahi Perspective has done a great job of explaining this. The Iranians have chosen just to react. Every time we do something, they react to it. They say, okay, if you're going to blow up this, we're going to blow up that, back and forth. Qatar, whatever you want to call it, is this little pudenta that sticks out. The northern part of it is the natural gas field that is controlled by Iran, and the other part is by Qatar. Qatar has already come out and said enough. They surrender. Qatar has surrendered to Iran. Put that in your pipe and smoke it, as they say. What is there? So there's starting to the top. I don't know them that well, but like Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, the UAE, and in the middle of the UAE is Dubai, and then Oman is the one that's on the outside. Oman is already like very favorable to Iran. Qatar just gave up, so they're already going to start to get rid of the U.S. military, and it's going to happen to all of them. Iran is going to take over what are effectively like American colonial interests in all those countries. It just happened in the last month. I mean, it's happening this fast. Of course, the narrative in Washington, D.C., and New York City, and Wall Street is that there's because the Barabbas terrorist criminal mind is how Americans think. They think, not they, we, everybody believes that we can bomb a country and then make a deal. Bomb Gaza into rubble and then just develop on top of it. It's pure Barabbians. We should call these people the Barabbians. They're gangsters. America is a gangster state. And that's how the whole world is going to see this. When farmers can't get fertilizer, can't get diesel fuel, can't get this, can't get that, don't have natural gas to make plastics. So they're going to blame it on America and Israel. Now, since this has sort of like an anti-Semitic feel to it, let's just finish by saying, here's the problem that I've always had. The book, the Bellum Judaicum, is sitting right there. It means the Jewish Wars by Josephus. Because the war on terror is a Jewish war. We'll get to that. And then you have to, how did that happen? Well, they have a lot of influence and da-da-da. You sort of talk your way out of it. But how and why did we all buy into this? That's my thing tonight. It's not just like the Jews did it. It's not that. This isn't Nick Fuentes. This is like, how did America, its whole financial system, its military operations, its strategic vision, how did it become so off the rails that we would have like the President of the United States putting this coalition together to go build Las Vegas on the rubble and bodies of children? How, like, just openly, just not even like hide it or like put a little lipstick on the pig or something. It's because we're Barabbians. We've Christ, Barabbas. We've chosen Barabbas. So, and you've seen them, I'm sure you've seen them on Substack and TikTok. You've seen rabbis say that, like, yeah, we want we want the United States to become Edom. We want we want Europe to be overrun by non-Europeans. I've seen them and you've seen them, right? I'm not making this up. And then I don't know if you've ever done the calculus. I've been talking about it a couple times on here over the years. There's like about 7 million Jews in Israel, and they're about this far. The head of the IDF says that the Israeli Defense Forces could literally implode. There's only 100,000 of them, and they're all reservists. They don't really have like a big 1 million man professional standing army like everybody thinks. It's a tiny, tiny country. So just again, the Barabbians want this to happen. They want to recreate the temple in Jerusalem so bad and create the Greater Israel Project and dominate the Middle East so bad that they are willing to push the country to be an overrun. 100,000 Hezbollah in Iraq, 100,000 Hezbollah in Lebanon, 100,000 Houthis armed to the fucking teeth. 1 million soldiers in Iran. Millions of soldiers ready to attack Israel and the sort of American colonies in the Persian Gulf. Now, if they're overrun, or Saudi Arabia would be overrun, the prestige of the United States collapses. So roughly speaking, just to run the numbers, half of the world's Jews live in Israel and the other half live in the United States. There's 400,000 in France. There's 300,000 in Russia. It might even be bigger than that. But it's very, very, very scattered outside of the United States and Israel. My point is like the Bellum Judaicum, you could have both Israel be overrun and the American economy just have a failed bond auction or something, like literally go bankrupt. The United States of America could go bankrupt through this. It has $14 trillion of corporate debt to roll over and $10 trillion of treasuries to roll over this year. $24 trillion needs to be rolled over in the next 12 to 24 months, all of which is paying 4 and 5%. And now the global inflation rate is double digits. It's probably 9 to 12%, just globally, just amongst friends. You're going to have to get people to part with $25 trillion to roll that over while there's double-digit inflation. And the Moran paper, it's sitting right there. That's the guy who made the economic plan for the Trump administration. Just says, if people start selling our bonds, we'll default. They're just gangsters everywhere you look. Hegseth, Bessent, Moran, Trump, J.D. Vance, Alex Karp, the whole fucking lot of them, are just Barabbians. They're just criminals. They think like terrorists and criminals. How did this happen? Like, is this always who we've been? Maybe. It's not political, though. Right? We know this now. Like, the Epstein files come out and it's Trump's in them and the Rothschilds are in them and Wexner and all these names and everything. But it's clearly not like, the woke people didn't do this. The blue-haired lesbians of Seattle did not destroy the empire. The white men did. And it's because of a religious situation. It's because the American ethos, if you will, is more Barabbas than it is Christ. So I want to point you to two sources of info on Substack. And I generally try to do that. If I find really good sources, instead of just stealing their stuff and manipulating it and put it back up as my own, which I do. But seriously, if I find really good stuff, I try to give you sources. Okay. The first one is exposing the Noahide laws. And back to my point that we're all Barabbians now, so to speak. It's congressional action has created literally a Jewish dimension to American law. It's not a conspiracy theory or like some Nick Fuentes thing or something out of the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. It's in the congressional, it's law. So the first one was Education Day, passed in, I believe, 1982, signed by Ronald Reagan in honor of Rabbi Schneerson. Schneerson is some think he's the Messiah, but he's the guy that promoted the idea that the Messiah is coming. And Jews have a divine soul and everybody else has an animal soul. It's literally hate speech. It's Barabbian. The Barabbian laws are now our laws. I'm not making this up. They're sometimes called the Noahide laws. Okay. Here is the formal U.S.-Israel agreement on Tikkun Olam, which is a Kabbalistic idea. It's not from the Old Testament. It's not from the Torah. It's not from the Talmud. It's from the Kabbalah. And the idea is the world is fallen. The world, it's not the traditional Genesis story that Christians and Jews think that they have in common. This is a more Gnostic idea that the creator of the universe, who has both male and female personas, this is not the God of the Torah. This is not the God of the Old Testament. This is a different God. This is a different religion. But that the existence has fallen. And it's the Jews' job to redeem it in the way, again, this is why I'm doing the Christ Barabbas thing. They rejected Christ, right? This is in the tradition. And it's the Jews' job to reconcile the rest of the world to God. That's not a conspiracy. It's their religion. It's called, but hold on, it gets weirder. The joint statement, the Jerusalem, United States, Israel Strategic Partnership Joint Declaration, July 14th, 2022. Our countries, this is obviously the United States and Israel, further reaffirm that the strategic U.S.-Israel partnership is based on a bedrock of shared values, shared interests, and true friendship. Furthermore, the United States and Israel affirm that among the values that the countries share is an unwavering commitment to democracy, the rule of law, and the calling of Tikkun, it's Tikkun, Olam, O-L-A-M, repairing the world. The religious ideas of the Kabbalah are now American law. It's about the rectification of by the way, just to remind you who this is called Exposing the Noahide Laws and Defending the Faith by Jana Benham. According to Judaism, the world, according to the Kabbalah, not so much the Old Testament is what we think of when we think of Judaism. According to Judaism, the world is broken because divine sparks, aka Jews, are trapped inside the shells, the klippot of the Gentile nations. We're the problem. To repair the world, those sparks must be extracted, and the shells, our traditions, our faith, and our sovereignty must be stripped away. It is a mission of spiritual and physical restructuring of the world, not coexistence. According to the rabbis, massive part of this repairing process involves the Noahide agenda. The goal is to move all non-Jews away from their own religious idolatry and bring them under a set of 7 laws governed by the central authority in Jerusalem. Again, this is not conspiracy theory. This is in American law. The worship of Jesus Christ is considered idolatry. In the Mishnah Torah, Maimonides, famous, I think, 16th century Jewish philosopher, explicitly connects the repairing of the world to the enforcement of Noahide laws. Maimonides rules that the ultimate goal of the Messiah is to perfect the entire world to serve God together. This perfection, tikkun, is achieved specifically by compelling all of humanity to accept 7 Noahide laws. The Lubavitcher rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson was the primary 20th century figure who moved the Noahide laws into public and political sphere. Now, recently, Netanyahu said that these laws and these ideas are actually the basis for Western civilization. Western civilization is clearly Christian, but not anymore. They will use the intelligent mud, like making a golem, like making a Frankenstein, of AI and total surveillance to enforce a version of goodness that has nothing to do with the Holy Spirit. Now, in the past, and the penalty for pure idolatry, such as the worship of Christ, is avodah zara, which carries the penalty of beheading. Now, if I would switch the words out here at the beginning of the War on Terror, you would think that I'm reading from Muslim terrorist, like mullahs and imam, like Muslim leaders, right? All this focusing on like beheading Christians. Muslims don't teach beheading of Christians. Mm-mm. Now, by the way, it's published in, I think, 2017, and I think in the Times of Israel that Trump converted in 2015, and like his children, I think all of his grandchildren are Jewish, and of course, Jared Kushner is like the celebrity of the Chabad movement. So again, the question is like, how did America get here? Like separation of church and state, but is that even a real thing? Do we really have separation of church and state? Have we ever? These are reasonable questions. Like I don't think these are an easy thing to answer. The Puritans don't believe it. The Puritans don't believe in separation of church and state. Obviously, the modern late 20th century and 21st century evangelical movement doesn't believe in separation of church and state. But they're purportedly Christians. Like, so again, like how did all this like arrive here? And there's not easy answers to this. So the other writer that I wanted to bring you in touch with is Dr. Heather Lynn, who's also on Substack. I think I'm following her. I think I actually subscribe to her. Following. Let me just click around here for a second. Now, I've spent a lot of time on here talking about the fact that we're not all going to start like becoming practicing Orthodox Jews or something like that's not what that's not the point here at all. I'm not even sure that we're like really even expected to convert. We are just not allowed to worship Christ. Again, Christ, Barabbas, those are your options today on Palm Sunday. Okay, so Dr. Heather Lynn does some really heavy-duty shit about the Kabbalah, and she has a piece here on the Kirk assassination. I don't think that Charlie Kirk was assassinated. I have sort of a weird thing. I think it's staged, and she points out that the big bloody neck thing where this blood squirts out of his neck. That's not what it would look like if he was shot by a 30-06. Like his whole half of his neck would have been blown off. So this perfect little spurt of blood is just, and she argues that it's to mimic like the fake Trump assassination, which is clearly fake. That this assassination was a kind of like a ritualistic slaughter of a Christian. This is dark shit. Now, she goes into what is the Star of David. There is no Star of David in any Jewish literature. It's a completely made up sort of a witchcraft kind of a thing. Has more likely to do with Saturn worship, which is a kind of a heresy even to the Jews. Hold on. The other thing that she points out, and it's just not jumping out at me right this instant, but is this emphasis on how the technology, Palantir, and specifically how the technology is like the new law. This is how this Noahide operation is going to happen, is through this new technology, the AI, effectively. And what I'm here to tell you, as the thing in the Middle East continues to spiral downward, tit for tat, back and forth, more just destruction of things that make civilization possible, namely energy and trade, are just being destroyed by the hour after hour. They're just being dismantled. Again, 20 to 30% of the gas, oil, fertilizer, aluminum, helium, gallium, the list goes on and on. So I wanted to give you another, you know how I like to do this, another text we can take ideas from. And once in a while I mention this, and I don't really take it all that seriously. What you're seeing played out in the Middle East is two rival visions of the Middle East. One, obviously, is Israel, Jerusalem, the Noahide laws, the recreation of the temple, the Sanhedrin, Greater Israel, Pax Judaica. 2 years ago, those were very edgy things to talk about. Now everybody talks about them on social media. I did it 3 and 4 years ago, but who's counting? The other vision is clearly Islam. So really the war on terror is Jews versus Islam. And in between are white Christians paying the bill and creating the weapon systems, creating the bombs, creating the technology, and creating the soldiers to carry this thing out. Again, Israel only has like 100,000 troops, and they're basically like a national guard. They have no real ability to, and our friend, Mr. Mizrahi points out that Israel can only start wars. They can't finish them. And this one can't be finished by anybody. If we took all of our troops, we took 1 million troops and landed them in Iran, they would just be annihilated. Like the famous Gallipoli landing under, I think, Churchill was the head of the Admiralty. It was a complete slaughter. And that's what Trump is walking his way into. But again, these people don't care about what happens to the U.S. Marines and the 75th Ranger Regiment and so forth. They don't care. These are animal people. So we're going to do a piece by Johann Goethe, the famous German poet, wrote a piece at the end of his life where he discusses a kind of caliphate. What you really have going on right now in the Middle East is two ideas of a kind of a caliphate. You have sort of a Jewish Greater Israel caliphate. What do you mean caliphate? Like literally there'll be like a religious legal structure centered in Jerusalem that controls all of the Middle East. I mean, Netanyahu pretty much openly talks about it. And you have the actual Islamic caliphate, which currently has planted its flag not in Turkey, which the Ottoman Empire was the Muslim tradition. I don't know, 300 or 400 years that all of the Middle East was controlled by the Turks under Sharia law, under Muslim law. So you have Muslim law versus Noahide law. You have two Middle Eastern visions at war in the Middle East, but they had to appropriate the United States in order to make this all happen. That's the summary. And I'll put this up for paid people. So, as usual with Manus, I made a nice little summary for my notes, and because this is too complicated for me to do it from memory. So he wrote Faust 1. Um, Faust is the deal with the devil, like Robert Johnson went down to the crossroads and met the devil and learned how to play the guitar. You know, we've heard those stories like in rock and roll and other places. So Faust sells his soul so he can like have control over the world and have control of women and technology. And it sounds a lot like this guy, doesn't it? Yeah. So so later in life, he wrote the second part of that. I think he was like almost 80. It was like 50 years after the first part, he wrote the second part, Faust 2. So forgive me, I'm going to read to you so I can get as much headed in your direction. The second part of the tragedy, published posthumously in 1832, is the magnum opus of Johann von Goethe. Unlike the first part, which focuses on the intimate, tragic love story of Faust and Gretchen, Faust 2 is a vast allegorical and episodic journey through politics, mythology, economics, and human striving. The play is structured into 5 acts, each exploring different facets of human ambition. While Faust II is deeply rooted in European history, specifically the Holy Roman Empire and the classic Greek antiquity, Goethe's lifelong fascination with the Orient, Islam, and the concept of the caliphate subtly permeates the text's political and philosophical dimensions. So, I want to simplify this for you. So, in this thing written, what year was it written? It was published in 1832. Okay. We have the Holy Roman Empire. We have something that's like the Holy Roman Empire, and that's the United States. And we have something that's like the Caliphate fighting itself in the Middle East for control. And it's almost like a vision 200 years later of what is now taking place between like the West and the East battling for control in the Middle East, everybody launching missiles at each other, trying to control the oil, trying to control the flow of everything in and out of the Persian Gulf and the Red Sea. And it's almost exactly what came out of this guy's brain a little bit less than 200 years ago. It's the War of the Emperors. there's an emperor and then there's the anti-emperor. We have, Trump has this bizarre, like, theocracy kind of a thing. Did you see the picture where everybody's praying with him? I mean, this is a man who rapes teenagers, and everybody's praying to him like he's some sort of both um both secular and spiritual leader at the same time as they launch this war against a nation that's 6,000 years old that actually is really based on religion, the Islamic Republic. Instead of reading this to you, I will just post it. I'll post it for everybody. Here, here's the problem as I see it. We've already gone through the fact that, like, Israel could be overrun, overwhelmed at any minute. The head of the IDF has already said that. China and Russia are clearly behind Iran. Therefore, Iran has limitless technology and resources and financial resources. There's no end to what China gets, I don't know, 15, 20% of their oil and and gas through the Persian Gulf. They're not going to let Iran fall. The American approach to this, American and Israeli approach to this, is so bungled, so strategically, tactically, uh, so savage that the rest of the world will never forgive America for what it's done already. The things that are already done. It doesn't matter if they make they're not going to make a deal anyways. Just the fact that they think that they'll make a deal shows you the gangsterism that America has become. No, we'll bomb you and then you'll do as you're told. No. Well, then we'll bomb you some more. No again. They don't know no. They don't obey any laws. They are a law unto themselves. That's why we started off by saying these are all Barabbas. They don't believe in Roman law. They don't believe in Jewish law. They don't believe in American law. They don't believe in the Constitution. They don't believe in the Bill of Rights. They don't believe in any of it. They have their own, they are the cult of Chabad believes that it's they're playing God's role on earth. That's not overstated. That's what they believe that they are doing here. So you say, well, how are 7 million people going to dominate the Middle East? That doesn't even register with them. Reality doesn't register with these people. This is truly a cult that is not worried about the outcomes, because the worse the outcome gets on earth, the closer they are to their Messiah. You want to hear that again? The more destruction, the more damage, and this is how the Schneerson Chabad thing goes back to the Frankists and goes back to the Zevites. That the way to trigger God bringing the Messiah is to cause as much destruction and moral destruction, if you will. In other words, inflation and lockdowns and children without hospitals and without proper nutrition. That's the goal. That isn't like something that went wrong. That is what they're trying to achieve. The fact that this is going to happen to all the Gentiles around the world is the desired effect. Now, this guy believes that their job is to just decapitate Iran. Like, they're just going to keep knocking off these officers, not officers, but the leaders of the community, just one after another. This is like Talmudic, right? The best among the Gentiles execute him. This is what Palantir is. That's their strategy. Now, the missiles keep coming back this way. Doesn't mean anything to them. This is the desired effect, is to create this hugely destructive war for everybody. The more, and if it turns into a civil war in the United States, so be it. If Israel gets overrun, so be it. The question is how did this happen to America? Like, where did we go from Amazing Grace to like Epstein? This is where an element of pessimism comes in. This is why you have to choose between it. Not everybody has to choose Christ, but in the Western tradition, in the Christian tradition, you only have two options. On Palm Sunday, there's this guy and there's this guy. Well, in the 19th century, as democracy clearly arrived in the United States to some degree, and it was trying to, like the Revolution of 1848, was trying to catch a foothold in Europe. The reason it didn't is because the Christian, specifically the Catholic worldview was, if you give up the established order, the Barabbas take over. That's what the Catholic bishops said. The democracy won't work because effectively, if you just teach everybody freedom, we don't have some natural inclination to do what's right. That this is a problem of Protestant theology. They think that by cutting ties with hierarchy, religious hierarchy, that the inclination of the Reformation is sort of like a democratization of Christianity, right? The built-in problem with that is the human brain doesn't have a natural inclination for what is good and true and just and so forth. And that's how we got here. The interesting part isn't that there's Epstein. The interesting part isn't that Trump is in the Epstein files. The interesting part isn't that there's a sort of gangster red mafia woven into the American experience. Like we knew that in the 20th century, like the mob sort of got JFK elected in Chicago or some shit like that. It's not even that they like eat kids and so forth, or that they made a movie called Monsters, Inc. that makes a joke out of a society that lives off of the screams of children. The really remarkable thing, and you may agree or disagree, is that all these things have been revealed and nothing happens. Nothing. Sort of like 2008, we have this $1 trillion corrupt finance, which pretty much all of Wall Street was part of. Nobody goes to jail. No one is prosecuted. Larry Silverstein, who blew up Building 7, he said on tape, we pulled it, we blew it up, which there's probably a law against that somewhere. I don't know. Nothing happens to him. And why would he even say that in public? Well, I'll tell you why. I'll answer my own question. It's because he knows he's above the law and that the law has been corrupted and he's untouchable. Specifically in the bottom of Manhattan, I'm quite certain that the judges and the courts are corrupt. Go look at what happened to Epstein. He was arrested, I think, in West Palm Beach, and the prosecuting attorney effectively just became part of his mafia. Just completely caved into the whole thing. We don't even have the basic structures. I have to name drop another brilliant woman on Substack named C.Y. Cantorell, I think her name is. And she says that she went through the Epstein files. What she found was not a conspiracy that's like hidden, in the basement or something, or in the island, or she said, what you really see in the Epstein files is how America really works. It's Barabbian. And now we don't have any legal structure. Actually, we do have some, and I'll get to that between now and 9:00. We don't have any federal legal structure to go after the Barabbarians. Our Constitution has been completely enveloped by this lawlessness, by this Barabbarian terrorism, Frankist-like activity of blackmail and sexual dungeons and so forth, and it just permeates everything that happens at the federal level. So let's find something positive to talk about. And again, we'll name drop again. What is this guy's name? There's somebody, I can't think of his name, if it does come to me. There's somebody continuing to make the argument, which I think is quite correct, that all of this is going to have to be done at the state level. That the union of the Israeli Epstein, Wexner, Rothschild freak show that controls the FBI. I mean, so if you control the FBI and you control the attorney general who says, fuck it, the stock market's at 50,000. That in itself is just like so Barabbarian in itself, like just a total lawlessness of like thousands of victims, like on stage talking to Congress people. Nothing is done. Nothing. The only way America is going to be able to hold any sort of, as this war unfolds and the inflation hits and the gas prices and the bond market will probably eventually break. I think we are looking in the next 10 years at a failed treasury market. Bankruptcy. We won't be able to roll over our debt. Not for the reasons you think, not because inflation got out of hand or interest rates went too high or Washington, D.C. was spending too much money. No, it'll be more of no one around the world will do business with the United States other than buy soybeans because they need the soybeans. But I mean, no one will look into the American financial system and say, we don't want anything to do with that. We don't give a shit how much debt they have to roll over. We don't care what the interest rates are. On moral grounds, we don't want anything to do with them. We don't want anything to do with their technology. We don't trust their technology. The CEO of Palantir says, and the head of the ADL says, we're going to blow people up. Whoever we feel like. Just like the Noahide laws. No one's going to do business with the United States on almost religious grounds. Certainly not the Muslims. What's really happening in the Middle East is the Muslims are taking control of the Middle East again, like it was before World War I. And I don't see any signs that will stop. If you look at, like, from a military standpoint, if you look at whether it's Hegseth or Netanyahu or what have you, like literally the head of the IDF is saying that they could have a complete collapse of the IDF. And the only thing that happens in America is the bravado of the war fighters in the Department of War. just gets louder and louder and louder and just bangs like a gong, even though like the real destruction from the enemy upon us gets worse every 24 hours. This is not a political problem. This is not a right-wing problem. This is a religious problem. And we don't have any infrastructure to deal with that. Is Joel Osteen gonna like start like a Sunday show and say like, sorry? What are we gonna do? Say sorry for killing millions of Muslims for the last 25 years? What are we gonna say about sorry about Gaza? No, there's no way to do that. The only thing that can be done is that the horror of all this is finally someone has to take agency. Someone has to be human again. Team Human needs to come back to America. And Team Human has to say, we're not going to do this anymore. Hold on, gets worse. We're not just going to vote in a couple more Elizabeth Warrens. We're going to go after the Epsteiners and we're going to put them all in jail. And some of them may have to be executed for treason. You can't start a war and say sorry. It would be a reasonable thing for I don't know. I mean, like what does the United States and Israel do about Gaza now? Sorry for dropping 1,000-pound bombs. I think it's 100,000 metric tons of bombs were dropped on an area the size of San Diego. The only way that America even exists at the end of this century is state by state, governor by governor, attorney general by attorney general have to eat the giant elephant that is the Epsteiners. And they have to arrest Larry Silverstein. What do you mean you pulled it? What do you mean you pulled building 7? What does that mean? Pulled it? There has to be some sort of initiative back to some sort of conception of law. And not like we're going to like elect some people that are like the whole. I mean, it's great that all these people protested and like no kings. We don't have a king. Like, what does that even mean? No kings. We can't just run around in like these leftist MSNBC-ish fantasies. We have to get these motherfuckers and put them in jail. And finally, I have 2 minutes left. I'm going to say this 3 times. And seize their assets. That wasn't 666. That was just a finger touching thing. We have to seize their assets. Wexner, Silverstein, the Trump family, the Epstein people. We have to seize their assets. So let's go out, as you know how I love to do this. What was the Civil War really? It was about slavery. Yeah. But what really happened? 2 things. Lincoln did not just prosecute a war against the Confederate armies. Lincoln seized the wealth of the oligarchy who started the war, burnt down the mansions, ripped up the railroad, destroyed the economic capacity of the people who had taken America hostage. And we have to do that again. Like trillions of dollars. There's not like we're going to vote a couple people in. No. There's no time for that. The inflation is going to burn across the globe like a forest fire. Children without pharmaceuticals, without housing, without food, without transportation is going to just erupt in the next 6 months all across the globe. And it will be blamed on the United States of America. Everybody knows that Israel is insane and Netanyahu's insane. It's going to be aimed at the United States of America. We don't have a backup. What are we going to do? Vote for Kamala? Mm-mm. We have to put these people in jail. We have to disassemble this Gestapo-like oligarchy framework that's now called, that's overseas, it's being called the Epsteiner class. It's a brilliant term. The Epsteiner class can't be outrooted just by more AOCs in Congress. People have to be taken down, taken out, their wealth confiscated, and nationalized. Okay, so, American Gothic, how did we all become Barabbians? Well, in 2026, as we are now on year more than 25 years of warfare, of religious warfare against the Muslims, all illegal, all unprovoked. Libya, Taliban, Afghanistan, Syria, Iraq, the Houthis, Iraq. None of these people attacked the United States of America. None of these people were even a direct threat to the American people. And we've been killing them and running up our debt from $3 trillion to $40 trillion in 25 years. Soon we'll be borrowing. We will run up $3 trillion in debt per year. That's how much debt we accumulated in 225 years. We had $3 trillion on 9/11. We are a nation in a kind of semi-religious fever dream of violence and money printing. It is not a self-correcting situation. It's not a political needle that needs to be pushed this way or that way. It's a metaphysical and moral problem that is very similar to what caused the destruction of the Second Temple and what caused the destruction of the Roman Empire. There's not just secular, like Ivy League seminars aren't going to put this back on the rails. We're not going to like Jeffrey Sachs our way out of this. We're not going to AOC our way out of this. So I had some other things that I wanted to develop, but that's enough for today. I had this thing in my mind, the Kabbalah, Christians, Caliphate, and something else, all spelled with a K, sort of a cute little thing. Maybe I'll do that next Sunday. I don't know what the financial markets will possibly do tomorrow. I don't know how they do this. I don't know how they wake up tomorrow and run the financial markets with a third of the aluminum capacity of the earth was just destroyed by Iranian bombs. I don't know how they do this. Okay, and here's the headlines. 50,000 American troops in the Middle East. Iran warns invaders face fire. Trump, I will unleash hell. Hegseth praises Jesus. Russia sharing satellite images. F-16 scramble above Mar-a-Lago. And oil opens the week up. Okay, well, that was a nice start to things. That's from the Drudge Report. On Zero Hedge, quote, the Pentagon eyes weeks of ground operations in Iran as the IRGC threatens tit-for-tat strikes on universities. there's nothing and no one in the system to there's no resistance to these people. This Barabbian thing has taken over the souls of these people. They only know more and more and more violence. And I'm sure it will come to the streets of the United States, as we saw a little glimmer of in Minnesota. there, there's no way that Israel and the United States are going to surrender, right? There's no way that Trump would ever do that. There's no way for the U.S. Congress to get control of Trump because AIPAC controls Congress. There's no way for the federal government to police itself. You saw that with the Attorney General Bondi. Well, Epstein? The stock market's at 50,000. We are completely out of control. One of the things that's interesting about this is it's really not partisan, isn't it? Is it? It doesn't really matter if you're in a red state or a blue state or which way you lean politically or if you're an independent or whatever. What really needs to be done is really beyond all kind of political, ideological debate. It is just a return to some sort of human lawfulness that's been lost by people who are literally possessed, ritualistically trained to live off of terror and violence. Trump has been trained to live this way. Whatever's in the Epstein files, you can be sure that whatever Israel has on him is far worse. There's an FBI document that says that Trump is not just influenced by Netanyahu or right wing or like something, that Trump is compromised. That means Trump has committed treason. That means the Republican Party has installed a treasonous administration. Remember, I'm the guy that said there was like it's going to be like the Confederacy. That's what the Republican Party is. The Republican Party is a treasonous operation working with gangsters with no way for the American people. Nobody wants this to happen, right? It's like overwhelming. Like 73% of the population doesn't want this war. Doesn't fucking matter. The as I started at the beginning, the congressional system has already been overridden by a new religious system called the Noahide laws. And that has been layered in since somebody handed Harry Truman $2 million to begin the Jewish state. I forget the guy's name. That was reported by none other than Gore Vidal. President of the United States was bribed with $2 million to create the state of Israel. And the $2 million is just metastasized now into 20 trillion or something. I don't know. Like private equity, the mega group, the Rothschild. What is the number now? Is it really like all of Western finance? Is it like $400 trillion or something? So probably no content until Wednesday. We'll do a piece at noon unless something dramatic happens in the meantime. We'll do like a hump day kind of a thing on Wednesday, mainly focused on the markets. And we're going to continue to do the Nationalist on Friday, and we'll continue to do Leaves of Grass on Saturday, and we'll continue to do whatever this is on Sunday. This one's going to be called American Gothic. And this week, most importantly, we'll be solidifying our relationship in Austin, Texas with my teams. Have a nice week.